More now on that airstrike that killed a top Iranian general in Iraq. Let's bring in Wisconsin Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher. He's in Green Bay this morning. Congressman, good to see you. Do you think this was the right move by the Trump administration?
Absolutely, this was the right call by President Trump to take not only Qassem Soleimani, but Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis off the battlefield. These were terrorists that recently killed an American and also were plotting further attacks against American soldiers and our diplomats in the region. And remember, Soleimani is responsible for a long history of terrorism, chaos, and malfeasance throughout the Middle East. He has the blood of over 600 American troops on his hands in Iraq. That's about 1 out of every 6 combat casualties in the country. He is also responsible for exporting the sort of Hezbollah model throughout the region, taking advantage of the financial windfall provided to the Iranian regime by the JCPOA to export chaos in places like Syria, in places like Yemen, and in Lebanon. And so this is a good day for America and our allies. Obviously, we need to be prepared for what comes next, but 100% the right call.
You were in the Marine Corps, Congressman. You were deployed to Iraq twice while on active duty. Do you think that what do we need to look out for now? What might come next from Iran in terms of retaliation?
Well, certainly Iran has been systematically escalating for the better part of the last year, and we've had a very measured response. In some cases, we've done nothing. And so the hope is that this will restore our deterrent posture. This will dissuade Iran from escalating any further, knowing that we are prepared to do what's necessary to protect our people, to prevent further loss of life going forward. And to bolster our position, I would recommend that we need to continue to maintain maximum economic pressure on the Iranian regime. We need to put ourselves diplomatically and rhetorically on the side of the protesters, not only in Iran, protesting their own government, but the anti-Iranian protesters in Iraq and the anti-Iranian protesters in Lebanon. And so hopefully we can avoid further escalation. And that's what deterrence is all about. It's about the avoidance of war and the maintaining of stability. And our weakness and our inaction for the better part of the last decade when it comes to Iran was actually the most provocative towards that.
Congressman, we have a lot of investors out there today trying to make sense of this situation. What type of response do you expect from Iran?
Well, I certainly would expect them to do what they normally do, which is to retaliate through proxies. They maintain aggressive proxies in the form of Hezbollah in Lebanon. They have proxies in Yemen. So they may not necessarily attack in Iraq itself, but I would expect them to consider a retaliation in that form. But again, the message we've sent is a simple one. It's a strong one. It's that if you kill Americans, if you threaten us, we are prepared to respond, and we are potentially prepared to respond lethally. And that's a strong message. That's a message that resonates throughout a region like the Middle East.
Congressman, President Trump proclaimed much of last year that he is an isolationist, but this is an election year. Do you think that President Trump would be willing to go to an all-out war with Iran and put American lives at risk?
Well, I don't remember Trump ever describing himself as an isolationist. He has, however, expressed a desire to reduce our troop presence in places like Syria and in places like Afghanistan. I think these recent events are a reminder of how important it is for America to stay forward engaged, and that with a modest and small investment of resources, they can really, with a light footprint, have a high impact. And we've actually done that model successfully in decimating ISIS in Syria and Iraq. And I don't want to see us squander all the gains that we've seen against ISIS and other terrorist groups in recent years by precipitously pulling out of the region for political purposes. And indeed, I know we have to reposition our focus on Asia. I am incredibly in favor of that, and Trump deserves enormous credit for highlighting the threat posed by China. But we can do that while simultaneously guarding our interests in the Middle East without a massive deployment of 150,000 troops, which was our force posture when I was deployed to Iraq decades ago.
Congressman, what do you think is a bigger risk to the U.S. economy this year? Is it these rising tensions with Iran or the China trade war? We have signed phase one or are about to sign phase one of the trade deal, but that could escalate in any moment.
Well, I would take a longer term focus. Quite honestly, I don't know over the next year what would be the most short-term impact, but the biggest economic threat we face undoubtedly is from China. And in particularly, I'm concerned about the Chinese Communist Party's ability to dominate the future of the internet, which is basically the future of the economy. If they make further inroads when it comes to 5G, convincing some of our allies to go with Chinese architecture for their 5G we are going to be in a very dangerous position a few years from now. We simply can't allow that to happen. We know we have incontrovertible evidence that Chinese companies like Huawei and ZTE are effectively appendages to the Chinese Communist Party. And so I think that is the biggest economic threat we should be worried about in both the short term and in the long term over the next decade.
Congressman, some of your colleagues in Congress are criticizing the president. I think they can agree that Soleimani had to be dealt with, but they are questioning the way in which the president has done this. He didn't go to Congress for approval. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the president retains authority under Article 2 to take defensive action to protect our people, to protect our troops. Furthermore, we are in Iraq at the invitation of the Iraqi government and pursuant to a congressional authorization that Congress hasn't found time to repeal. This was indeed the considered legal opinion of the Obama administration. So the same people that acquiesced to Obama's unlawful actions in Libya and said nothing when he redeployed troops to Iraq are now criticizing Trump for taking defensive action to protect our people. I don't really think that sustains or withstands any scrutiny. Furthermore, these were terrorists. Mohandas was a designated terrorist, and Soleimani was the head of a designated terrorist group.
All right, Congressman Mike Gallagher, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.